Hello, and welcome once again to the Dental Marketing Mastery Series. This podcast is brought to you by dentalwebcontent.com and New Patients Incorporated. I'm Howie Horrocks, the founder of New Patients Incorporated. Along with me once again is my friend and partner and the president of New Patients Incorporated, Mark Dilatush. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome again to our podcast.
Hi, Howie.
Hey, Mark. What's going on?
I'm 2,214 miles away, and I know that because that's what my plane ticket every time I fly out there.
You got that down. You've flown out here plenty of times.
Yeah, 4,428 frequent flyer miles. So,
yeah, and that's just your half.
I'm not really sure that's right. I think I'll measure it.
Yeah,
I think I'll measure it and call United. Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about this new series that we're going to start.
Yes, we're I think what spurred it on was 2018's right around the corner, and dentists should start thinking about their budgeting for next year's marketing budget, right?
Yeah, their budgeting, their allocation, what part of the market they have to or they should go after based on several factors, really. And even how it all integrates with their, 3 and 5 year plan. And there's very few dentists that sit back with a glass of wine by a fireplace and even consider what their 3 and 5 year plan is. But it's kind of difficult to get where you're going if you don't know where the hell you're going. Right?
Yeah.
So this series that here's what we want to do. We want to give you 20 to 30 minutes of take home. I hate to call it homework because that's kind of negative, but take home tasks that you can do easily, quickly, fast. That's going to help everyone listening to this podcast series not only understand how you got to where you are in 2017, but how to organize your marketing for 2018 and how everything ties into each other and what's the right marketing mix and just a whole bunch of topics that we don't even know how many of these are going to be in the series. We believe there's going to be many. And what we hope to do a half hour at a time is take you from, let's say, the third week in October all the way through to December 31st so that all your marketing for 2018 is all budgeted, all allocated, either in design or done, in production or done, all scheduled, or at least the schedule has started, the right mix, the right orchestration. It's basically what we do for our clients. So we want to, even if you're not, if you're not a client, this will help you because we help a lot of dentists, so you can help yourself with this information. So let's get started. All right. So a doctor or a client comes to us, and it's right about now, actually. Hey, what should we do for 2018? Should we do anything different? And there's some dentists out there that do different things just for the sake of doing something different, just because they're bored, right? And one of the worst things you can do with your marketing is to swap something out that's working for something that doesn't work.
Oh, I know. And you know what? Where you hear that most is, the dentists, they're tired of it. They're bored with
exactly. They're the issue. Right? Yeah. Right.
Let me tell you, we know for a solid fact that your target audience will get bored you'll get bored with your marketing way before they will.
Exactly. So this isn't about you. This is, the audience. This isn't about the dentist. This isn't about your staff. This isn't about your spouse. Okay. This is about marketing and business and dental consumers. And they're not anything like any of those other people in your life. Okay. So when people come to us and say, what should I change up? What should I do? We normally rely on the budget to give us a guide. right? Because if a dentist comes to us and says, what should I do? You know, if we weren't honest, trustworthy people, we would say, well, hell, doc, you should do everything. Here, give me $5 million and we'll make you famous. Okay. That's not ever going to help. Okay. So asking what should I do is actually the second question. The first question is what's my limitation? What's my budget limitation? And a lot of dentists struggle with this. So that's one of the first things we're going to do with you today is we're going to ask you to go to your QuickBooks, your Quicken, whatever you use for your payables. And this week, I want you to create, just get a number of what you spent on the first 3 quarters of the year on marketing. You know, multiply it and figure out what it would be for a total for the whole year. And that's not too hard, right? And I don't want you to forget anything. Okay, you probably have a website, or maybe you have you know, a piece of software that emails and texts your confirmations and recalls, and maybe you have a PPC campaign, and maybe you have a Facebook campaign, or maybe you have a direct mail, whatever you have. I want you to add up all the costs, total the number, and I'd like you to determine what percentage of your revenues that number was. And here's why. One of the, not predominant, but one of the mistakes that dentists make a lot, well, not a lot, but several dentists have made is they believe that their market should generate more interest than statistically it will. They under budget their marketing to try and, I don't know, for some reason, prove that they can squeeze more out of their market than any other human being can, and then they get disappointed in the results they get from their underfunded marketing budget, which basically causes confusion and causes you stress needlessly. Really, I mean, all you have to do this is what we do. If the practice is producing under $1.5 million, we multiply the gross dollars collected by 5%. We multiply that, your total collections by 5% from the previous 12 months. So that's a number. Let's say you produced $800,000, you collected $800,000, you multiply that times 5% and you get $40,000. Now compare the lowest of your marketing budget range, I'll get into that in a second, with what you spent. Where were you? Were you under 40,000 last year? Were you at 28, 36, 45, or were you at 80,000 when you should have been at 40? Okay. Figure out where you are in relation to where that sweet spot is, about 5% of your revenues. Okay. Now, if you still need more new patients and you're spending 5% of revenues, you might look at what you're spending it on, because it might not be working real well. You should be able to grow almost any dental practice in the country. I say almost every dental, except for the egregiously competitive markets in the U.S., you should be able to grow a practice for about 5% of your collections as a marketing budget.
Right, except in coastal California.
Yeah, well, there's anomalies. You know, downtown Manhattan, downtown San Francisco, downtown Chicago. I mean, obviously there's anomalies, but for the most part, you know, for the practices that we serve, you know, in 5 countries, actually, we've proven this out to work everywhere except for the anomalies. So if you're not in an anomaly market, consider comparing what you spent in 2017 to what your 5% of revenues called for. So one mistake you might be able to change almost immediately in 2018 is to raise or lower your budget. If you've greatly underspent but still did pretty good with new patients and you just want a handful more, then probably all you need to do is just simply do more of what you're doing. get your budget within range and do more of the advertising that you're currently doing, which is currently working. Okay. If you're about where you want to be new patient wise, in other words, close to that capacity line of, let's say, 8 days being booked out, then you must be doing many or some of the things right. Your website might be right. Your reviews are probably right. You're probably doing some form of offline communication to drive local targeted website visitors. You're probably doing that right. So if you're within that range, within that 5% range, and you're within your capacity, 8 days, 8 work days, you're doing well. There's really nothing. I mean, so I'm going to assume your revenues are going up. They should be if you're at capacity. The only reason they wouldn't is if you're spending your 5% of revenues on shoppers. That's when you can get more new patients and see your revenues drop.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So kind of that's we'll probably deal with that in a future episode. But anyway, so 5% of trailing 12-month revenues to 5% of goal revenues. So let's take, our example, practice doing $800,000 in 2017. They want to get to, let's say, $900,000 in 2018. So we know the lowest part of their budget is $40,000 because we multiplied 800,000 times 5% and got $40,000. So now all we have to do is multiply $900,000, their goal, times 5%, and we come up with $45,000. That gives us a range for 2018. Our marketing budget will not be under $40,000. Our high end of the budget will not go over $45,000. We should be able to grow this business within that budget range. That's what budgets are for. Budgets are there to control costs. They are not there to spend your money, which might be a good breaking point. I think we'll have a little bit of a break here, have an advertisement come in, and then we'll come right back.
Okay. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. Mark Dilitesh here. I want to take a couple of seconds to remind everyone that the special for all of our electronic products, the free trial, is going to expire on October 22nd. The free trial includes all of our electronic products and runs until January 1st, 2018. So if you'd like to improve your online reviews and online reputation, if you'd like to integrate your website in real time with your practice management scheduler to allow more patients to schedule new appointments, if you'd like access to more social media dental content than you could ever imagine, if you would like a replacement for your texting, emailing, recalling, confirmation software, if you'd like all those things for free, I'm going to suggest you go to our website, newpatientsinc.com, and there's a link called products, and then there's an ADA special navigation there, and then there's a form. Complete that form so that we have time to give you a demonstration before October 18th. If you are coming to the ADA show, please visit 2755, especially if you're interested in this offer, because on October 22nd, it's going to evaporate. So thank you for listening to our podcast, and thank you for listening to this message.
Hello, we are back again. We are talking about budget and allocation and numbers and all that stuff for the upcoming year. Yeah, and I think one of the things we left with was making sure that your budget range, you don't go below it, you don't go over it, and unless you're in one of those really egregiously competitive environments, you expect to be able to grow your dental business with a 5% marketing budget. Okay, in our example, we used a budget of $40,000 to $45,000. We discussed that budgets are not there to spend your money, they're there to control your costs. Okay, so that's why they're important. Yeah, many times we run into people, and I've fallen into this myself with some, years past budget. Let's see, that's where my money went last month. Right. Not where it's going to go this month. You get get it backwards. It's really a plan for the future.
It's a projection, right? It's an expense projection. That's what a budget is. So, okay. So if you budget for, and again, we're just using an example, dental practice. One thing I left out, I mentioned before, if you're under 1.5 million, for those over 1.5 million, let's say 1.5 to 2.5, you can usually drop that percentage about a half a point each year until you either need more capacity filled or you're maxed capacity, either one. It's kind of funny how the numbers work once you get up to that point. But for most people who are listening to this, 5% of trailing 12-month revenues to 5% of goal revenues. So now the next question is, all right, okay, that's my budget resource. If I'm going to spend $4,000 or $40,000 a year, that's about, what is that, about $3,500? Yeah, about $3,500 a month. If I'm going to spend that on marketing for my whole business, where does that money go? How do I allocate that money? And when I allocate that money, how do I diversify my allocation? You probably have heard that mentioned before, very likely from a retirement planner who told you initially when you were younger to diversify your holdings to minimize your risk. You do the same thing when you invest marketing dollars. So what do I mean when I say allocate? Well, let's take something simple. Your website probably costs you a couple $100 a year to host it and secure it. There's a couple $100 out of the budget. I don't know. You might be paying someone to do SEO. There's $600 or $700 a month. That comes out. That would, as long as your SEO is working and as long as you're showing up everywhere for most of the terms, that's a good investment for almost every dental practice. So that's a good investment. So you're looking at, what do the keepers cost? What do my assets cost me on an ongoing basis? Another common one might be the software that you pay for on a subscription to do your texting and emailing to your own patient base. Whatever that is, $300 or $400 a month. Okay, so you start pulling these things out of the budget and you end up with a number that's left over. So you pull the numbers out that you're using to fund your assets, your marketing assets, your website, your SEO, these internal communication packages, anything that's working, keep. Nobody's telling you to get rid of them. Keep them. If they're working and you can't get something better for less or get more for about the same amount of money, keep them. When you get done tallying this up, you're going to end up with a chunk of money left over. It'll probably be 50% of your budget, maybe even more, maybe even 60% of your budget. So that's going to leave you with, $25,000, $30,000 just to, well, what do I do with this? Like, how do I reach out to the local community and make sure they understand the breadth and the scope of the services and amenities and technologies and convenience that I offer everyone? Let them know where I am. Let them know what my hours are. Let them know my website. Let them know everything about me. How do I do that? How do I do that with this resource, this 25 or whatever the number is? Now we can get into a discussion about what you've done in the past, which is almost always part of our discussion with our current clients. What have you done in the past that has worked well? What have you done in the past that did not work well? And probably the $64 million question is, how in the hell how do you know if it worked or not?
Exactly. The result tracking, yes.
The result tracking is abysmal. And we love all of you, okay? We're not trying to pick a fight. We're not trying to insult anyone, all right? We're just saying, I know your staff thinks it's right. Your patients think they're right. You think everybody's right, and they're all wrong. And you walk around making decisions based on wrong data, and that takes you from something that works and pushes you into something that may or may not work, which is always dangerous. So before you consider what you're going to use the bulk of your allocation for 2018 on, we have to go backward and kind of take a look at what your marketing was for 2017. And if we can, cross-reference the ultimate source of those new patients as best we can. I mean, we understand that it's not a perfect science. And certainly as your marketing expands, as you get more and more successful, you're going to be exposed in more or more mediums simultaneously. As your budget grows, mom may see you 7 times a month in your local market. She's not going to remember she's not going to remember which one the first one was. Hell, you don't even know which one the first one was. Okay. So the more, here's my point, the more successful your marketing gets, the more muddied that source water becomes. Okay. So we're not picking on you. We're not the dentist. We're not picking on your staff. We're not picking on anybody. We're not picking on your patients. We're just saying, as best you can. And here are the ways you do this. If you do primarily electronic promotion, then you have or should have landing pages. You should have analytics on those landing pages. You should have the names and the phone numbers or the email addresses or all those things that have been accumulated in your online marketing objectives. You may even record those phone calls, and you should be listening to every one of them and perhaps calling the ones back who have called not during your office hours. So you have data to cross-reference with your new patient list. If you're doing any form of mail, your marketing company can cross-reference your mail list with your new patient list and tell you exactly how many of your new patients that came in between date A and date B were also the recipient of your mail piece, whether it was a postcard, a trifold, a magazine, no matter what it was. Okay? Takes a little work, but boy, when you're planning out next year, wouldn't it be nice to know that your $2,400 or $2,500 a month expense was generating what you thought it was generating? Because almost every dentist says, well, hell, I'll spend the money if I know it's going to work. Well, let's know it's going to work. Then spend the money, right?
Right. That's where call tracking comes in, and all the cross-referencing and all that. That's how you can plan for the future based on solid, reliable data instead of just going off of somebody's feelings.
Right. Or going to a seminar and listening to the schmo with the microphone, who's probably half as qualified as you are to be up there. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So now you have your numbers. And you've done your multiplication, and now you know. And you're gonna tally up your assets. What do you have that is functional and working that you've already invested in? Classic example is a website. If your website's not more than, let's say, 4 years old, you've invested in it. It's there. It's probably working for you, unless it's terrible. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, from a budgeting standpoint, consider it an asset. You don't need to pay for a website every year. That's insane, right? If you have one of those, if you have, if you're using a different service, let's say a 1-800-dentist or something, and if you happen to be in one of the markets where that works really, really, really well, then keep it. Okay, that's something that that is working for you. If it's not working, stop using it and reallocate those dollars to something that may or will have a much better pull for you. Okay. So
right.
This week, here's a recap for this week. Go look at what your patient marketing produced for the first 3 quarters of 2017. Do the math to project it out as a full year for 2018, and then go look at your expenses for 2017 for 3 quarters, project it out to be expenses for 2014, and do your math. Okay. Your expenses divided by your gross is going to end up being a percentage of some kind. That'll tell you where you are. You may need to spend more. You may be spending too much and not getting. The budget and the results is the first indicator of whether or not your marketing is working. So let's do that first. Let's start with episode 1. Let's start there first. And if you want, you can start adding your assets. Is my website really an asset, or is it like 4 or 5 years old and look kind of crusty?
Is it driving patients away?
Right, right. Does it, is an evil vampire in a dental chair a good picture to have? Those kind of things. One of the things that made everybody change their websites over was, responsive design for, cell phones and iPads. Okay. If your website doesn't work on, look well, operate well, function well, navigate well on a phone or an iPad, then, you got to allocate some money next year to a new website.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Anyway, so we're going to take these one at a time, slowly, purposely, and spoon feed you these 20, 25 minutes at a time over the next however many weeks it takes us. And then they'll live forever on our website, and they'll live forever on our Marketing Mastery Facebook group, so that it doesn't matter when you want to start, budgeting for the following year. If you want to start in August and you're a go-getter, then they'll all be there. You can just follow the whole series basically for the rest of your career.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us once again. We really enjoy being with you, and we're going to look forward to being with you again soon. Bye now. We hope you've enjoyed our podcast today. You can find more podcasts on our YouTube channel, on Stitcher, and iTunes. Also on our websites, dentalwebcontent.com and newpatientsinc.com.